Good afternoon, learners, teachers, and members of the public. It is a great pleasure to have you taking part in the Rössing Annual Birdwatching Day. Today marks the 19th year that Rössing is hosting this event. Birdwatching Day aims to give participants an experience to view the unique bird life in our region and to promote a long-term interest in birds linked to conserving local and wilderness biodiversity. The local schools of Arandis, Swakopmund and Walvis Bay have always been the nucleus of our environmental education activities for the past 18 years. This year, we are pleased to offer a virtual birdwatching experience. Birds are an intricate component of ecosystem and are one of the greatest indicators of climate change. Their behavior and disappearance can help us in evaluating the dangers to the environment. Environmental issues such as insect outbreaks are reduced with the existence of birds, and some birds are even important pollinators of specific types of plants and trees. As birds are also high up in the food chain, they are excellent indicators of the general state of our biodiversity. Rössing Uranium acknowledges the existence of biodiversity within our operational footprint, and we are committed to join this global drive to conserve and protect biodiversity through our health, safety, environment, and communities policy. In the past, Rössing has supported many different conservation efforts, including the Damara Tern fencing project, the seabird rehabilitation project for penguins, and Namibia's vulture projects. We are also proud members of the Namibia Environmental and Wildlife Society. Our goal is to create a positive impact on biodiversity and contribute to conservation in Namibia at large. We would like to thank the regional directorates of education for facilitating schools in their region to participate in this event. We believe a seed has been planted in learners to appreciate the natural environment and take up interest in studies in the conservation of the beautiful Namibia. For those of you who want to learn more about China National Nuclear Corporation, Rössing Uranium, please visit our website, www.rössing.com. Thank you and enjoy your birdwatching day, and we hope to see you again next year.
Good morning. Welcome to Walvis Bay. My name is Peter Bridgeford, and I'm going to tell you something about wetlands and birds. But let's start with wetlands. What are wetlands? A wetland can be any area that has open water. It can be a river, a dam, the lagoon, as you see behind me, Oshanas in the north, temporary flays. It doesn't have to have water all the time. And Namibia is a desert country. Many of our wetlands only have water once a year, once in 5 years. But regardless of that, they're known as wetlands. And wetlands are very important for people and animals. Why is that important? Because they provide water, they provide shelter, they provide food. Again, not only for animals, plants that grow in wetlands are used for building homes, for domestic stock, wild animals. On the coast, we don't have much vegetation in these wetlands, but there's plenty of food, and so it attracts lots of birds. Wetlands are very important for birds. And again, we come back to Walvis Bay. Why is Walvis Bay so important? Because there's lots of water, it has lots of food, and it attracts many, many birds. And it is one of the most important wetlands in southern Africa. And in fact, it is one of the 3 big coastal wetlands in Africa. There are 2 types of flamingos in southern Africa. The greater flamingo is the one behind me, as you say. It's almost white, the body. And most of you know flamingos are being very pink, but that is the smaller or the lesser flamingo. Now, greater flamingos, if we talk in human terms, we could say they are carnivores. They eat meat or live organisms. Lesser flamingos are vegetarians. They eat plant matter. So back to the greater flamingo. They do this little dance with their feet and they go round and round and round. Why are they doing that? If you look at the bill of a flamingo, it's about as big as that. It's big. It has to use the bill upside down to feed. And they put this bill in the water, and they use the tongue as a pump, and they actually filter water through their bill. Water goes in and out, and with the water comes in the food, the water goes out, the food stays behind. But now I said greater flamingos eat live organisms, larvae of various little animals, but they are very small. They are buried in the mud. So how does he get them out? And that's what he's doing. By that trampling action, he makes soup of this mud. Then he sucks the soupy, this muddy water, he pumps in through his mouth, and that's how he gets his food. Now we said the lesser flamingo is a vegetarian. He eats algae. And algae, you all know, is this green things that develop on dams, and the farm dams, in your swimming pool, and it's plants. So that's what lesser flamingos eat. But the algae is not buried in the mud. So all he does, he walks around with his bill and he goes like this through the water, and you see him walking around like this, and they're pumping water in and out, again through little filters on the side of the mouth, stop the food comes in, but the food can't go out. So that's already one way you can distinguish greater flamingos and lesser flamingos if you're not a bird expert. First of all, the greater flamingo is light colored, is very little pink on it. The lesser flamingo is very pink. Greater flamingo does a little dance, the lesser flamingo doesn't do it. And then there's, of course, the size difference. And that goes for all birds. Now, how to identify birds? People will say, oh, it's so difficult, they all look the same. But they are like any hobby or anything, there's a few tricks you've got to look. First of all, let's look at the size. And if you have a bird book, you'll see in your bird book, they tell you what the size of the bird is. And the bird is measured, what they do, if I was a bird, they put me straight down like that, they measure from there to my feet. Or if I had a long tail like some birds, they'd measure to the end of the tail. And that is how the birds are described in your bird book. Then you look at the color. Is it black, white? Is it mixture? Is it various colors? I mean, every bird has a different color. So immediately you have a difference. So you've got the color, you've got the size. Then you look at the bill. Some bills are straight, some are short, some are curved up. The color of the bill, is it pink? Is it black? Is it two-tone? Some have black at the back with a yellow tip, like some of the terns. Is it broad? Like ducks have broad bills, because they dabble in the mud. They push their bills into the mud and they break off plants. Others have very long thing. They stick it into the mud and they pull out little organisms. Again, this is a feeding difference. Some birds have a very short bill, so he collects the insects or the larvae which are near the surface. One has a longer bill, so he can go in further that the little bill couldn't reach. And then you have birds with a bill this long. He goes right down there and pulls out his food. The legs. So you look at the length of the legs and the color again. Some birds have green legs, black legs, pink legs. So you get all these things, the size, the shape, and all these together, then it's easier to identify a bird. Then you can go to your bird book and look at it. You know it's a water bird, so you're not going to look at things that you find in the bush inland. The other big bird that everybody knows in Walvis Bay, not only found in Walvis Bay, of course, is the great white pelican. They are pretty big birds. Males can weigh 11 kilograms. But to get that big body flying, they've got wings of up to 3 meters. So that's even longer than my outstretched arms. So pelicans are pretty big, and they feed on fish, which they catch in this pouch they've got under their bill. And they also use cooperative hunting. What is that? Very often with the lagoon and the sea, the tide goes out, you have small pools of water, or inland as the rivers dry up, the pools get smaller and smaller, the river is no longer flowing. And birds, the pelicans will then hunt in a line. They'll all swim together and chase the fish ahead of them. You'll see one go in, it'll grab it, come back, and it gets back in line, and this one will go in. So they hunt together to get their food. Question is, how old do you think a pelican can become? We know that in Walvis Bay, the oldest pelican we've got was 43 years. How do we know that? Because when it was born, just after it was born, a ring was put on its leg by an ornithologist, and the ring got a number on. And at the age of about 40 years, this bird was seen again in Walvis Bay, and it was seen for 3 or 4 years after that. And then one day in the harbor, we assume it flew into a cable from one of the ships or something and broke a wing, and it died. But yeah, it's 43 years old. It's the oldest known pelican in Namibia. Another bird which is fairly common along this area here is a grey heron. And what is interesting, that's the same grey heron you'll find in Europe, going right across to India, through Africa, East Africa, down to Namibia and South Africa. Now this heron, he hunts a differently again. He doesn't use cooperative hunting, but he's got a bill about this long, very sharp, and he uses it as a spear. So he goes into the shallow water and he sees a fish, or in the north you'll find frogs, or inland and dams, and they'll use that bill as a spear. They'll eat just about anything that moves. Small snakes, birds, lizards, fish, crabs. They'll also eat carrion. They do a bit of a cleaning up job. Then, when you come to the sea, everybody knows seagulls. There are three types of seagulls we find along the coast. One you hardly ever see, so I'm going to talk about the most important ones. Is about this big, and it's called a kelp gull. And kelp is seaweed, so it's basically the seaweed gull. And why do they call him a seaweed gull? Because very often he will go where there's seaweed lying on the beach, and little animals are hiding there under the seaweed, and he'll flick it aside and eat what's there. So it's the kelp gull. A white body with black wings, also a fairly long bill with a yellow dot on the end. And what's interesting about that yellow dot, when it has chicks and it brings food, the baby will tap on that spot, and then the adult will regurgitate the food, and that's the way they feed them and things. And that's how also they hand rear small kelp gulls. They make a dummy with a little dot on the end, and when the chick sees it, he taps on there, and they open it, and the food runs out. Then the other one is a small grey and white gull. That is Hartlobe's gull. Now, Hartlobe was one of the early German ornithologists that came to this country, and he sent this specimen back to Germany, and they named it after Hartlobe. Grey and white, you'll see them all along the waterfront, and you throw some bread out, in a moment you'll have 50 or 100 Hartlobe's gulls coming to feed there. There's another one that looks very similar to it. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it's very seldom seen. It's a grey-headed gull. It's very similar, but it's got a grey mark around the head. But there are very few in numbers of them. So we have the big ones, the kelp gull and Hartlobe's gull are the gulls you'll see most commonly along this coast. We're going to talk a bit about the waders. These are the small little birds that you see running around on the mud here on the edge of the water. And they're called waders because they wade into the edge of the water. And they go around picking in the mud. I say some with short bills, some with longer bills, some with very long bills. And this is a problem where many bird watchers have troubles identifying these. But because there are thousands of them doesn't mean there are thousands of species. Some of them, like the curlew sandpiper, is the most common wader in Namibia. And there are literally thousands of them. And you'll find them here in summer, and in our winter they're gone. Where do they go to? They go on holiday to the northern hemisphere. They fly from here 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 kilometers to the northern hemisphere, northern Europe, into Russia, and then they breed there. Then it's summer there. There's lots of vegetation, mosquitoes, flies, insects. There's vegetation for them to hide their nests from predators. So they lay their eggs, have the chicks, and when it starts getting cold there again, they fly south again, all the way back to southern Africa, Namibia, Walvis Bay, some go as far as Cape Town. The other little waders are little stints. They're only about as big as a sparrow, or a mossy, as many of you will know it. They also fly to Europe. They don't breed here, because in Walvis Bay, there's no place for them to breed. There's no vegetation where they can hide and make their nests. So they come here for our summer, get nice and fat. All they do every day is just feed and feed and feed, put on a lot of weight for that fat to take them across this long journey up the east coast or whatever flyway they use to get to Europe. And another small wader is the sanderling. He again is very white underneath, short black bill, little black shoulder patch. We were talking about gulls. And yeah, right here, we got us very close to us is Hartlobe's gull. I said there's a white and grey gull, grey wings, red legs, and the white body is white. Hartlobe's gull. And the kelp gull is the one you see over there. White body again, black wings, but he's big. He's about this big, and he's got a long yellow bill with a red dot on it. Those are the most common gulls that we see here. And what is interesting about the kelp gulls is they take the place of vultures on our beaches. We have vultures inland. You all know what a vulture is. Eats dead animals, cleans it up, stops a disease spreading. And on the beaches here, you have many dead seals, dead birds, and the kelp gulls will eat them. They'll eat the seals, they'll eat the dead birds. The other one is the pied avocet. And again, pied refers to the black and white. And he's one of the few birds with a bill that curls up like this. Now we talk about waders again, a bit of the smaller birds. And these are the little birds you see running around there up and down on the beach, as I said. But there's ones that are very common in Swakop and Walvis, actually along our coast. And that is a white-fronted plover. His legs are about this long and white-fronted, and on his forehead he's got a white patch. He's got the very short bill and a very white patch and a white collar. And they don't go to Europe. They don't fly away. They don't migrate at all. They stay here throughout the year. And very often they will just lay an egg. They don't even make a nest, because if you've got a nest, predators see it. Jackals and gulls will see, there's a nest, so they eat your chick or your egg. So they'll just lay egg here amongst these rocks there. The egg is camouflaged and it's difficult to see. And they run up and down the beach. So it's one of them. That's the white-fronted plover you see over there. There's another one, looks very similar to it. It's called the chestnut-banded plover. And chestnut is that brown color. It's got a little black, like a collar across here, the chestnut-banded plover. And what is interesting, about 80% of the population of these birds in the whole world is found in Namibia. Short legs, look like a white-fronted plover, but he's got this chestnut-banded collar on his chest. So those are the ones to look for that are very common along our beaches. They run up and down, up and down. Then you get some waders which are a bit bigger. They have longer legs, about this long, bigger bodies, bar-tailed godwits. They have a long, straight bill, and they stick it right into the mud and pull little organisms out of there. They're usually in flocks of 10, 20, 30, also patrolling along the edge of the water. They don't go into deep water, they're all along the edge here. And that's why Walvis Bay is such a good place, because we have these huge expanses of mud. The tide comes in, brings food, the tide goes out, and it exposes these mud flats, and that's where the birds feed. And that's why we have, in summer, we can have 150,000 birds. 150,000, that's a lot of birds. And how do we know this? Because we've been counting them for many, many years. There's a group of people in Walvis Bay and Swakopmund, and also people come from Windhoek to help us count these birds. So we've got counts over 30 years, which tells us more or less how many birds we've got. In winter, when most of the birds are now having a holiday in Europe, the numbers go down to about 45,000, 50,000, 55,000. And those are the birds that don't go away. The gulls don't go away, the flamingos don't go away, white-fronted plovers don't go away. So they're here all year round. But flamingos do migrate, but they only migrate to breed, and then they go to Etosha Pan. If Etosha gets water coming in from Angola, it's a very large area, it's hot, the food develops very quickly in the water. They go there, build their nests in the water. Why in the water? So the jackals, hyenas and things can't catch them. In other places in East Africa, they have problems with baboons catching flamingos. So they need lots of water, and of course they need water for their food, and they need water to nest safely. So although they don't migrate to Europe, they migrate to Etosha, they also go to Botswana. And now in South Africa, they've actually built, there's a dam, they've made an island in the dam, and they also breed there. We've talked all this morning about various types of birds, flamingos, pelicans, seagulls. Each of us, in our own way, can help conserve birds. In your own house, on the farm, you can put out water for birds. We all need water, birds as well. Put out a little container so they can drink water. Put out breadcrumbs, seeds. Look after the birds in your garden. Birds are not just here for the sake of conserving. As I said before, they are very important for Walvis Bay. They create jobs. How do birds create jobs? People come and look at birds. So you need somebody to drive you there. You need a guide to explain to you this and this bird. So it creates jobs. Today we want to go with a message. Wetlands are important, birds are important, but people are also important. We can all work together, there's a place for everybody, but we have to look after our birds. And I say whether you do it here or wherever you are in Namibia, you can help look after our birds. And I wish you a very pleasant day. Thank you.